What's up? What's
What's
up?
up? What's up?
Welcome back to another week of Everything Vaguely Paranormal. My name is Blake Smith, and as always, my partners in the paranormal, Miss Shelly Pruitt and Mr. Brian Roberts.
Cow.
And y'all, tonight we have such an interesting. Oh my god, I don't even know. I don't even know how to start this because a few weeks ago, me and Shelly participated in a past life regression. That was an experience that I never was even, it was never even on my radar to be a part of. I'm going to be honest. It wasn't something that I sought out to be a part of. And after we had this
here comes your friend pulling you in.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, first off, how did y'all? Because I wasn't there. I was having to work. So you guys,
job.
Yeah, me and that job. But y'all were able to go up to Gainesville, and be regressed. And how did y'all get hooked up with this person that regressed you in the first place?
So Linda Hill had sent out this thing to paranormal investigators, this kind of like call. And I was one of the ones that was on her list. And how I got there, I don't know. But she said, I am looking for guinea pigs because she is an author and she writes books. Because I'm looking for guinea pigs to take part in a past life regression experiment. And I was like, I sent back, I'm game. And she goes, if you're serious, are you available at this time on this date? And I went, yes. And I bet I have some friends that'll come with me. And she went, fantastic. See you then. And so I quickly got on the phone. I had already agreed for both of y'all before I ever talked to you guys about this.
Well, we're game. So.
Yeah.
I know you were game. And I knew for a fact that no matter what it was, what time or whatever it was, that Blake would figure out a way to be there. I knew you're a little further away and it might be a little bit more difficult for you, but I was almost certain I could drag Blake along with me, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Without a doubt.
So yeah. And she said she'd taken 4 people and that was it. She chose 4 people.
She chose 4 people. She had chose 4
now,
people too.
Were they regressed with y'all? The other 2?
No, they were not. I think she had just done one just prior to us getting there.
I think she had done one earlier that morning. We were in the afternoon. I think she'd done one that morning.
Well, yeah, I mean,
and
just
she had
prior
one
to us
the
getting
next
there.
day.
Yeah.
I think she had one the next day. There were 4 that she had chosen.
Yeah, but it was such a profound experience that it really got me and Shelly questioning, kind of like, okay, I mean, this has got to be some type of topic that we want to speak about, that we want to touch base with, because I'll go ahead and say it. Like I'll tell you a little bit about my experiences with.
Can we throw up her book first? Do you have a picture of her book? Because it's Linda Anthony Hill, and she has written a book. I sent you a picture of the book. It may be in there, but the book is called Finding Up. And it is basically a way to realign your thought processes for maximum success. Now, does it sound like a self-help book? Yes, it does. Does it read like a self-help book? No, it does not. It reads as if it's basically a kind of, and it's not a step-by-step guide. It is about finding zones. And that's her book, Finding Up. So it's about finding the zone that you're currently in. Like, and you can be in different zones at different times. You could be in the red zone, the yellow zone, or the green zone. The green zone is what you want to attain.
So it's a meditation guide, basically.
Kind of, but no.
It's about the whole thing. The whole concept of the book is about learning to master things. The steps that you take to gain mastery at certain things in your life, whether that be, and she uses the example in the book, from just learning to write with a pencil or learning to fly a jet from point A to point B, from A to Z.
It covers all of it. The steps are the same. You still have to take the steps to master either. And it's do you know what the steps are, figuring out what the steps are, and taking each step at the appropriate time. And so it's very interesting, and it's very relatable, because like, it was funny because while each of us were being regressed, the other was given this book, and she would say, you have homework while you're waiting. And I'm a really fast reader. I got all the way to chapter 13, and it's a quick read.
Yeah,
and did you get to 11 or 12?
I got to about 11 or 12, but I ran off to Sonic to get me some food first.
Yeah, that's
I ain't
true.
gonna lie.
So it is a very quick read, and it is very informative, and it is very easy to read. And at no point do you ever feel like you're being preached to, or it seemed. And I'm not about the self-help books, y'all. I avoid that section of the bookstore like the plague. It's like, no, I'm good. But I'll tell you, it does not read like a self-help book. It genuine seems like kind of like guideposts to becoming more in tune with what you need to get better at whatever it is you choose to get better at.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
of course, whenever Shelly asked me to be a part of this, I was like, yeah, of course, let's go. Come on. I'll be there that weekend, that time. Yep. And I'll meet you there. And at first we were given an address and we were told to show up there at this time. We show up at that address, and the next thing that we know, we're actually going around the corner to the Hill House Manor in Gainesville, Texas, which Linda Hill is also the owner of. And
really,
if you remember the story about Hill House Manor, that is where the last time we were there, someone was taken over and jumped.
Yes.
So she also owns the manor.
Yes, she does.
Yes, she does. Okay, interesting. I did not know that. That's cool.
Yes, she does. And that is the location where we were being past life regression, having a regression. I call it a regression session.
Yeah, regression session, right?
Sounds kind of cool. Fun. And at first, I'm going to say I was a little bit kind of taken aback at being at this location and being vulnerable and letting these walls down.
Because we've seen what happens.
We've seen what happens in that location.
Leaving yourself open.
And for me, and not going too far into the regression just yet, because I do want to talk about my past experiences of what beliefs and stuff like that. I don't mind speaking openly about that with past lives. But letting those walls down to be that vulnerable, to get to a place where I had this experience that we walked away with, or that I walked away with, because we were regressed separately. That was hard. That was tough. That took me a minute, because I had to let go of that string that was like, okay, you've seen what happens in this place. Mm-hmm. And now you are with your eyes closed and you are letting go. You're letting your walls down.
Do you feel like that apprehension was really holding you back? Or do you think it was like good to be cautious while you were doing it? Or...
I can tell you from my experience that once that I was into it, I didn't care where I was.
Okay.
Yes,
it didn't bother me.
I 100% agree with that. 100% agree with that.
Okay.
But that was probably the hardest part of it. Once I got past that hurdle, the rest of it, I can't really say it was an enjoyable experience, because we'll get into that a little bit later, but it was a very profound and moving experience once I was able to get past that hurdle.
Yeah.
Because for me and the beliefs that I've had most of my life, I went on this spiritual journey when I was around 16, somewhere in there. And I was searching, and I finally landed on my belief system that I have. And, but even well before that though, I had been having these conversations with my mom, that we'd get into these deep conversations about past lives and reincarnation and all that kind of stuff. So even from a very early age, I knew of this concept. I knew of this theory of past lives. So my outlook on it was, since I can remember, I've always had this weird feeling that I've had a previous life before this. That's just a feeling that I've had.
Had you ever had glimpses or flashes before this of something you deemed to be a previous life?
So I've never had flashes. Like I've never had conscious flashes. Now I've had a reoccurring dream
that you talked about on Patreon.
Yes, I did. I did talk about on Patreon to put a date and a timestamp to it prior to the past life regression. And I had a reoccurring dream over and over. Then I wanted to see if anything would come up during this session of that. And it always felt like that was some type of memory, if you will. It felt familiar. I felt connected. Unfortunately, it never came out in the session, but it may, as she explained to us, it may take sessions 3, 4, 5, 6.
I was going to say, this is also your first one, so it might pop out at some point.
Correct. But what I ended up walking away with on this was it really solidified this couple of decade belief that there has been a life previous to this one. I don't know about you, Shelly. I don't know if you're comfortable talking about that and that belief system.
Oh, I can tell you that I absolutely believe. I believe in soul growth, and so I think that you come back, and that you get to keep coming back until you get it right, which is how you explain things like, people like Mother Teresa, who do nothing but good, or Einstein, these brilliant, and they are so rare and so few and far between. And I think that once you reach, as she says, that level of mastery, I think you get to be done. So
that is a very Buddhist belief that you have.
And again, I am not a Buddhist, but that's just always kind of how I've thought, because that is the only way in my head that I can make sense for an innocent baby, just hours old, dying. And that means that, that they got here to do what they were supposed to do and learn what they were, or maybe you were put here to teach someone a lesson, or they were supposed to learn something so that their soul could grow and move on. And that's the only way in my head I can make it understandable to me that, whatever this higher being is would let this innocent little, hours, minutes, seconds old baby die, was that baby was there for a reason. It did what it had to do. And it was like, okay, now let's put you in something that's going to be even better for you. Right. And so that's the only way in my head that makes sense. So I believe you have to keep coming back until you get it right. And either you're there to teach a lesson or to learn a lesson. So, and again, you get Mother Teresa, who was good and gave her life to, nurturing others, and what we would truly embody as the holiest of endeavors, which is to serve others with no physical material possessions of your own. So yeah, that's kind of what my beliefs on it are. How about you, Ryan? Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to piggyback off what you just said, and then Ryan, you can explain your belief system on that. The difference between you and I and the way that we think on that is that I'm not so much under the belief that you come back until you get it right, and stuff like that. The best way that I can explain it is it's almost like there is a predestined number of times your soul comes back.
So like you get 10 chances and that's it.
Pretty much. But I don't believe that it's like 10 chances. If you screw them all up, then, you spend an eternity in this place that's, hellfire and brimstone. I can't wrap my head around that. That's not a concept that I truly believe. I think it's more or less you have a predestined number of times that your soul comes back until they just kind of go, okay, your soul's retired. You get to enjoy paradise now. And peace and rest.
Let me ask you this then. If you believe that, do you think, kind of like how Shelley's Shelley's belief is very Buddhist, do you think that if you continue to do wrong, that you come back as like a lower life form, or that you continue to come back in lower vibrations or whatever?
No.
Okay.
I think it's one of those things that if your soul was here as a human, you come back as a human. There's no lower life form. There's no stepping down. There's no, funny enough, regression to that. A lot of people will get into the fact, well, okay, what's the whole point then? And my opinion, I think it's just a soul's journey. I think that's what it just boils down to. I do believe in growth.
I'm all about consequences, baby.
Yeah,
I'm all about the consequences.
Based on what you just said, do you believe that even if the soul continues to fuck up royally every single time it's given a new lifetime, that it's still able to enjoy paradise after the 10th time? Or
every time it comes back, you're a serial killer.
See, and that's where I don't believe that I have the answers yet. I still think that even from, what are we, 17 years later, I still think that that's something that I'm searching for.
Yeah.
I don't have that solid answer on if you, like Shelly just said, if you're still a serial killer every single time that you come back, what the hell happens to your soul after the 10th time?
Yeah.
Sure.
That was my question. Like, I don't know, because you said you don't believe. Shelly says she believes in consequences. You say that you don't.
You get X number of chances and then you're done.
Yeah, and then you're done. So I was curious as to whether or not you believe in any consequences.
The only reason I think that you have to come back over and over again, and because you've seen these babies, like you've seen a brand new baby that just come in the world, kid, a friend's kid, your niece, nephew, grandchildren, and some of them come in doing this, wide-eyed, like, what in the hell have I gotten myself into? And some of them, they just lay there like, yeah, I got this. I've already done this before. Can you just give me the milk and I'll learn to walk and we'll get on with this whole fucking show? And some of them are like, holy shit, what is that? Oh my God. And you see the difference in these babies' eyes. Some of them look like they're genuinely old souls. And some of them look like they just got here and they are not too happy about it. So I think you get to keep coming back until you get it right. And sometimes you're like, hey, you know what? You're new. Guess what? You're going to get your turn now. Go. And they're like, shit.
Well, I think the thing is, like, with me, with no consequences, there's a huge belief in just my system of beliefs of duality, of where there's good, there's evil. Is there some place that the evil souls go to after, or whatever? Just like there's paradise for the good. Is there some, a hell, if you will? I don't believe in hell. I'm just going to.
That's why. Okay. That's why I believe that you get to keep coming back to get it right, and you have to learn your lessons. Because if you believe in God or a higher being, and that whatever that higher being is truly loves all of their children, I can tell you right now, as a parent, there is nothing that my son would do that would ever make me condemn his soul to eternal hell, to eternal pain and torture and discomfort.
Right.
So if your higher being is truly one of love, and you see them as a parent figure, a father, a mother, if you're Mother Earth, whatever, a parent would never condemn their child's soul to hell. So I think that's why they give you chance after chance to come back and get it right, because they don't want you to end up there. That's why I think that your soul has to grow, learn its lessons, and then you can come to me. When you understand what you did wrong, you may have to go sit in that corner for a little while, but you're going to learn. You know?
If y'all believe, and not saying that I don't, this is just a question that I have. If y'all believe that you are continuously incarnated or reincarnated or whatever it is, what do you think that we are dealing with as paranormal investigators? Because those are, from what we understand, are the souls or ghosts or spirits or whatever you want to call it.
It isn't that you jump right into another body immediately. I don't think
Agreed.
I think that sometimes you're waiting your turn, and sometimes you're hiding out going, oh shit, maybe if I just stay over here, they ain't gonna see me, because I didn't like it last time I was here.
Mine goes more along the lines of really boils down to, in my opinion, how a person passes. Was there trauma involved? Are they aware? I think it's not just a boom, you died, now you're reborn. There's a process to it. What that process is in between, I have no idea. Obviously, I haven't died. But I think that based on how someone's, is it manner or mode of death? Whichever one. Manner of death, I'm going to go with that. Depends on this, I guess, whether you hit the express lane to the next life, or you're at Walmart with one teller at 2:00 in the afternoon, and that's when everybody's doing their grocery shopping.
Perhaps you get a little bit of a rest, kind of like, okay, that was really rough, until you realize that we have to send you somewhere else. You can sit there, and whenever you're ready, you let us know. Because we have heard of people that help to move on spirits, that these spirits don't realize that they're dead. And so if you don't realize you're dead, how can your soul be reincarnated into something else? And we know people who will move souls on, say, go into the light and be free of this. And I think that once they figure out where the light is, then they get to go back down into whatever their new life is. We're getting way too philosophical here.
Well, do you think then that maybe whatever these souls are that have not moved on yet, they are so attached to the life that they just left that they are scared and do not want to move on? Or do you think they're being held in place by something?
I definitely think
both can be true.
I think that there definitely is a grief cycle. Just as we grieve on this side, I think you have to grieve on the other side. I think just as there is a process here, there is a process there. And I think that that's why some linger, whether that be they don't know or along that lines.
Well, now we've had this question asked to us before about, why do you think a soul stays in a location? And I think sometimes they have unfinished business. I believe that's absolutely correct, that there's some message they have to get, perhaps to clear up their own death as to what actually happened, something like that. There's a message they have to get, and they're kind of refusing to go until that message is heard.
Okay.
I think that they either or they don't know they're dead, and they have to somehow figure it out, or that they can be trapped. And by trapped, I'm not talking trapped by another spirit. That is possibly it, but I think that you can trap a soul, you in your human form, with your grief, because you've seen how some people just grieve for years and years and years over the loss of someone. I can tell you, if I were to pass away tomorrow, and before my spirit went whatever the hell it's going to go, probably straight to hell, but that's beside the point. But if in that moment before I was about to leave this plane, I saw my child uncontrollably crying, I'm not leaving.
It would be hard for you to leave.
I would be right there.
Yeah.
And that's why I think sometimes people's grief can actually trap a spirit. The human form's grief, because I wouldn't leave, and no parent and no child, if their parent was beside themselves crying, and they wouldn't leave, because you wouldn't leave anyone you loved
right
in a state of utter devastation.
Well, adversely too, there's also the people who, like, there's stories of toddlers, and not necessarily toddlers, but like children who will have stories about the lives that they led in the past, and they'll start crying, and someone will ask them why you're crying, and be like, well, I'm mourning my children. They're like, what do you mean you're mourning your children? You're like 8 years old. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, I had 2 kids, and can give people detailed recollections of places
they
and
could not know.
times that they lived that they could know absolutely nothing about.
No.
So I think that I think you're onto something there with the whole grief thing.
Thank you.
I would agree.
Thank you.
But so I think
we got to get into it, since
I was about to say,
let's get into our stories, because now let us tell you this starting off. We aren't going to tell you everything about what happened, because some of what happened is pretty personal. We're going to tell you as much as we can that we're comfortable with.
I will. I'll make a disclaimer here. I know that we had said on the live that we did when we investigated the Hill House Manor that we were going to put these videos up on Patreon.
We have had a chance to think about it.
For me, myself, I'm torn of whether I really want to put those up on. I put mine up on Patreon, or not. I put mine available to the public, because what I had experienced, in my opinion, is there's no doubt about it that it is something that my soul has experienced, and I am believing that would be a past life. And
my experience was slightly different.
Well, and the video itself is a very vulnerable video, and this is something that that it is a past life that my soul has experienced. That is extremely personal, and I don't know if I want that video out there, because that's my soul's journey. That's very private to my soul and the experience that it had. I do not mind talking about it. I do not mind telling the story in full. I myself, I can't speak for Shelly, but I myself will not hold anything back, because I don't mind talking about it. But I don't know if I want the video shown.
Okay.
Fair enough.
So I will say that.
Right.
So
there
for
might
me,
be a couple little details I leave out, but only because
that's fair enough.
Yeah.
So you have a question, Ryan?
I was gonna say,
I'll go ahead and tell mine.
I was gonna say, before we get into it, before you guys tell your story, what is the process in order to get you into that state?
So,
well, it was different for both of us, because we were 2 very different subjects.
Now, I will tell you before we talk about the process, and I'll tell this in telling my story. I'll tell the process she used with me, and I may not tell all of her process, because I know she has her techniques, but I'll summarize it as best I can to get you to understand.
Why don't you go into your story and tell it as part of your story? Because I want to hear how.
But what I was going to say is if you don't know what a past life regression, usually it's a form of hypnotherapy, or hypnosis that you use to recover what practitioners or those that are hypnotists believe are memories of past lives or incarnations. We'll just put that basic, simple definition out there for anybody who doesn't know what a past life regression is. For me, when I went in, we sat down and we were chit-chatting, me and Linda were, and she had told me, she said, this is going to be the difference here. She was like, there is no hypnotism here. I'm not going to hypnotize you. I'm going to use a different mode and method. And you need to be one that is able to suspend all logic where we're going. I said, okay, also not a problem. What we focused on to get basically what she called in the back door was pain that I was experiencing at the time.
Okay.
And I did have back pain at that time. And she told me to focus in on that. And she was going to start asking me a couple of series of questions about this pain.
Okay.
And those questions were just basically along the lines of, is it big? Is it small? Is it, what color is it? What temperature is it? It wasn't actually, she didn't say big or small. She said, what size? I want to make sure I get this right. What size, what temperature, what color? There was no suggestions.
There was no leading whatsoever.
And I can tell you that, I can vouch for that. There were no leading questions.
No.
At no point did I ever felt like I was being led, and I went back and watched, and there were no questions that were leading. She did not suggest anything. All of her questions were, what does it look like? What does it feel like? What do you see? Tell me what you're looking at. Tell me what you feel right now.
So it was all you feeling like
it was all me answering directly to her for her questions that she was asking. So I explained all of those. I gave her all of those answers, and she had told me, she was like, all right, here's what I'm going to do. This is the point where you need to close your eyes. She's like, and I want you to envision what you just told me, basically this tangible pain now, this object that I myself have created. She's like, I want you to go into that. So I went into it and I sat there. That was the longest part for me to let those walls down. I'm in this location. Once I was able to go, okay, look, Linda's right across from me. If shit goes sideways, she's the owner of this place. They know her. I highly doubt they're going to fuck with me while she's doing this. And if need be, Shelly's right outside.
With all the sage and all the holy water and all the holy oil.
A whole car full of sage. So if it comes down to it.
You weren't watching each other. You were in another room while this was happening.
No,
we were completely outside the house. We were
she
in
made
cars.
us leave. Now, she had said we could go upstairs and wait, but we didn't want to distract each other. Even though, actually, Blake went second. I went first. And I'd said, I don't mind if he's in here. And she said, I'd rather not, just because I don't know what we're going to get. And it's personal. I said, well, I'm going to tell him everything anyway. And she goes, then you can tell him.
Yeah.
Went fair enough.
Yeah. So once I was able to kind of get over that hurdle, as I said earlier, and kind of let those walls down, there was probably about maybe 5 or 10 minutes. By the way, the whole time, 100% lucid of my surroundings.
Okay.
I knew at any moment, if I felt like it, I could open my eyes and walk out the front door. So I was never put
out of control.
I was never put under and out of control. And once I got into this now tangible pain, about 5-10 minutes went by, and she'd ask me, she's like, what are you experiencing? And I said, sadness. I said, there's a lot of sadness here. She's like, okay. She said, I want you to feel that sadness, and I really want you to feel it. Let go and feel it. And it was at that time, on my own choosing, I decided to put myself and my brain into more of a meditative state to be able to feel that feeling. And immediately I started to tear up. I started to cry. I had tears running down my cheeks. And I guess my face had done something. By the way, I went back and watched the video. I mean, she is sitting there like this.
Oh, she never takes her eyes off of you.
No. And I guess my face did something. And I heard her ask, she said, what are you experiencing? What's going on? And I just thought it was like confusion. I was like, I'm confused. And she was like, okay. She said, do you know why you're confused? And I said, no, I don't. I said, this isn't sad. I said, there's something else here. This isn't sadness. And she's like, okay. She's like, go ahead. And she's like, back out of that one. Just pull yourself out of that. And so I did. And she's like, and open your eyes. And I opened my eyes. And she starts asking me the questions again. But what I found really interesting, when I first told her about my pain, I said, it's in my mid back all the way down to my lower back is where my pain's at. And when I pulled myself out, she had said, let me ask you something. How's your back pain? And I said, ooh. She goes, where is it? I said, it's in my lower right now. It had moved, completely moved.
Huh.
It wasn't this rectangular section across my back, about just below my shoulder blades, all the way down to my lower back, taking up my whole back. It was now just in the lower right portion of my back. I said, it's in the lower right portion of my back. She started asking me those questions again. What's the size? What's the color? What's the temperature? I answered all of that. And she said, okay, now I want you to go into this one. And so I went into that one. put my brain on my own accord back into like this meditative state. And she said, I need you to feel this emotion. She's like, what is this emotion? And I went, oh my God. I said, this is anger. I said, I am angry. And she was like, okay. She's like, I need you to fully feel this. And I kind of laughed at the video part. She's like, without killing me. She's like, I need you to fully feel this.
And Blake actually showed me this part of the video. And whenever he says it's anger, and he does that, and he stiffens up, and he kind of bows out his chest, his head's down, but that chest gets big, and he starts breathing like this. And you can see he looks labored in his breathing, like he's really trying to control it. So I want to give a visual of what I saw, Blake.
But at the same time, as all this anger is starting to boil up, I even showed Shelly on the video. I was like, look at my freaking leg. And my leg is sitting here just non-stop, just bouncing. I cannot. And it was, if I remember correctly, it was actually both legs were just, and I mean, they were going crazy. And she's right. I started, my breathing started to labor. I started to tense up. I started to get flush. I had veins on the side. Red. Yeah, I had veins on the side of my forehead that began to pop out, and my neck as well. And all of a sudden, it's almost like out of nowhere, as I had my eyes closed, I got this flash. And in this flash, there was the shape of a face. It wasn't fully detailed. It was just the shape of a face. And it was down below near my chest, as if you were cradling somebody in your arms and you're looking down at them.
Okay.
So it's down here kind of by my bicep area, my right bicep. And I tell her, I was like, there's a face. I see a face. And she's like, okay. And at this point, I'm starting to cry again because I'm so angry. And it was like, all of a sudden, this image started to come in of this person, this young man. I would put him between the ages of 16, 21, maybe somewhere in there. In my arms.
Could you see what he was wearing?
Well, and that's what and I relayed that to her. I was like, I see, somebody. And she's like, she said, what is he wearing? I said, it's a shirt. I said, it's a brown shirt. And she said, this was the only question, and I will, full transparency, say that somebody could misconstrue as quote unquote leading. And she said, is it a uniform? But my answer was no. I said, no, it's not a uniform, because it wasn't a uniform.
Could you put a time period on it? Like, is it like what we would think of as like someone now like wearing like a button-up brown shirt?
No,
or was it like Little House on the Prairie looking?
This was like... Yes, that's a very good analogy. Little House on the Prairie, very
like
much.
Michael Landon's shirt that had like the three buttons in the front with the brown, like he would wear with his overalls and suspenders or whatever.
Yes, very much like 1800s-ish
work
time
shirt.
Work shirt,
farmer clothing,
farmer
right?
kind of clothing.
Okay.
Brown, not dark brown, like a tan brown, a beige,
maybe a
if you
sun-worn
could be
shirt.
Yeah, could be. And he was cradling my arms, and that's kind of like, as I'm looking down, I also see like this beard. It's my beard. I'm looking, and I realize I'm looking through the eyes of somebody, and I see this beard all down on my shirt. I see him, and the next emotion that just came through, oh my God, y'all, was just the most intense anger I'd ever had. And this was at the moment that, and if I get emotional about this, I'm so sorry, because she said this can happen because it was
the connection.
Yes, because of the connection. And I just told her, I said, I am pissed off. I said, I am so mad right now. I'm just pissed off. And
did you feel like you were mad at the situation, or did you feel like you were mad at someone in particular?
That's where she went with it. So once I had this emotion of being just extremely pissed off, and at this point I'm crying, and the next flash I got was me standing over this young man, and he's now laying on the ground. I got the sense, because of like the weight on my body, that feeling you get when you jump into a pool fully clothed and all your clothing sucks to you, and you come out of the water and it still sucks to you, and that heaviness of it. That's what I felt. And I could almost, it just like I had this feeling that I was coming out of water and that I had laid him down on the side of whatever this body of water was. I couldn't tell if it was a creek, if it was a river, if it was a pond, a lake, or whatever. But we were on just a small kind of mound of a hill of an embankment off in the distance. There were some trees, some mountains, stuff like that. So we weren't where I live now, you know, in Texas. And I had this flash imagery next, and I'm standing over him and I'm brushing his hair out of his face. And she had asked me, she said, are you mad at this person? And I said, no, I'm not. And she goes, okay. She said, so you are mad at somebody else? And I said, yes. And what happened next was this flood of just anger, because I told her, I said, I'm vengeful. I'm vengeful. That's how angry I am. And all she asked me was, is this person alive? Oh, shit. That got
Deep
me.
breath. Deep breath.
And I almost screamed at her, no. And just immediately started breaking down, uncontrollably sobbing. And I am shaking my head back and forth, no. And she said, should this person be or not, or should this person be dead? And I was like, no. And Shelly, you watched the video.
I did.
At this point, I'm leaned on my elbows, on my knees. I am uncontrollably sobbing.
He has gone from being sitting stiff and straight to being crumpled, kind of crumpled down, face in his hands, wiping away, trying to regain his composure. And you can see him struggle to regain his composure, but he is kind of crumpled. The shoulders are forward, and he's trying to sit back up and get his composure. But it's like this, and just he keeps doing this over his face.
Okay.
And I did not get much more imagery left to it, but the connection that I was getting at that point, the feelings that I was getting, was that what I was looking at was my son. My son was dead, and it was at the hands of somebody else. My son was killed, and that's who I was laying on the ground. And I was vengeful at the fact that fuck this. Like I'm about to go literally kill somebody.
Could you see any wounds on the kid?
No, I couldn't.
Okay.
I had no idea. And that's the thing. Like what I just took 15 minutes to describe to you played out in time really could have only taken maybe 10 to 15 seconds. You're carrying somebody, walking up an embankment, you set them down, brush hair out of their face. That was all that I got. But I had gotten more to the story based on a feeling and a connection that it was my son, he was murdered, and he should not be dead. And to me, that's the vulnerability that my soul experienced in that moment is why I've pretty much chosen not to show the video, because I don't mind talking about it. I do get a little bit kind of flustered when I speak about it, which she did say could happen because you have that connection now. But just it was such a profound moment for me, not only experiencing this grief, this anger that I had never experienced, the death of a child. I don't have children, you know. But to say, it's going to sound weird to say that I know what it feels like to see your child dead, and that level of grief, that's what I was experiencing. And it really solidified for me this whole belief that I had from a younger time that I was talking about at the beginning, of that I always felt like there was a previous life before this one, because these aren't my memories. These aren't my emotions.
Or your current life experiences.
Current life experiences. And when I came out of that was basically the whole story of my regression. When I came out of that, she looked at me, and as quickly as it came, it went. That was the crazy thing. It was just like I had to experience it in this life. And once I felt the full-fledged emotions of all of it, it was like this weight just lifted off. I sat back up. I opened my eyes. You know, I finished wiping the tears away. And she just looks at me and she just goes, "You are an excellent subject for this." And she's like, "You immediately went into this. You immediately were able to drop the logic in your brain and get where we needed to get.
Mm-hmm.
So I walked away from it with a very profound experience that solidified something that I've always held a very close belief to in my life, in this current life.
Mm-hmm.
So before we discuss too much, do you want to go into mine and then we'll discuss in general, or do we want to discuss a little bit right now?
Well,
or
I mean, I know Ryan wasn't there. Shelly, you and I, obviously, we had the night to talk about it.
yeah.
I mean, Ryan.
Do you want to hear the differences in both, Ryan, and then maybe
Yeah.
compare and contrast? Or
Yeah.
do you have a few questions you want to ask Blake before we move to the next one?
I think let's hear yours, and then we'll kind of get into other stuff.
So what she says to Blake is, you are an excellent subject. She sits down with me, and again, I went first, which is a very good thing that I went first, because whenever Blake walked out of that building, Blake's face was red. He had tears all over his face. And I'm like, what in the hell did the lady do to you, Blake? And had he walked out and been first, I can tell you right now, I wouldn't have gone in and done it. So it's a very good thing that she made me go first. I think she picked that up from me. And I flat out told her at the beginning, I don't think I can be hypnotized. I said, I'm going to have an open mind. And she goes, it's not hypnosis. And I went, yeah. I said, I'm pretty hard-headed. I'm pretty stubborn. I tend to try to always follow a logical rail and stay on that rail and point A to point B. And she goes, that's okay. She goes, I have a way with people and I have a knack for getting into them. So she says, okay, let's talk. And she does the same thing she does to me. She goes, tell me where there's pain. She says, where in your body is there pain? And I go, like pain all the time, or like a pain if I've got it right now? She goes, just where's there pain? I said, okay, right here between my shoulder and my shoulder blade and my neck. And I said, I always have pain there. And she does the same thing. What does it look like? And of course, I'm looking at her dead in the eye. I said, what do you mean? She goes, well, if you had to describe it as an object, what would you say it was? I go, oh, it's a boulder. She goes, so is it heavy or light? She goes, is it big or is it small? She goes, tell me. And I said, oh, it's big. I said, and it's really heavy. She goes, what color is it? I'm kind of like, oh, okay. Well, at the top, it's a light gray. And at the bottom, it's dark gray. She goes, what shape is it? And I said, well, it's not round. And she goes, it's not? I went, no. I said, it's real jagged. I said, think of it like teeth and like jagged edges, like on an iceberg. You know how it's all jagged. And she goes, okay. And she goes, so is it hot or cold? Or she goes, what's its temperature? Where would you place it on the spectrum? And I said, so it's hot. I said, it's like a stinging hot. She goes, so what do you associate with that? And I'm kind of like, I don't know. And she goes, well, she says, well, think about it. She says, I'll tell you what. She goes, I want you to go ahead and just close your eyes. And I want you to think about that stinging hot rock that you say is in your shoulder. And I'm like, okay, so I'm thinking about it. And I'm sitting here the whole time going, yep, stinging hot rock in my shoulder. Yep, stinging hot rock. And she's like, she goes, okay. She goes, so let's crawl inside that rock. And in my head, I'm going, in my head, I've got all these little pictures and I'm going, okay, Shelly, focus. I'm like, okay, crawl inside the rock. And she goes, what's inside of it? And I was like, so this is where I really started trying. And I'm like,
more rock? I don't know.
No, what I said was, I said dirt. And she goes, oh. She said, what kind of dirt? And I said, well, it's not like the dirt you find in the desert. I said, I don't know. It's good dirt. It's valuable dirt. And she was like, valuable dirt. She goes, okay, what do you mean by valuable dirt? I go, it's valuable. It's like good dirt. You could probably grow things in it or find something valuable in it. I'm like, this is good dirt. And she goes, okay. And I'm thinking, I don't know how to explain good dirt. It's the first thing comes to my head is good dirt. And now I'm starting to reason with myself in my own head.
And that's what I was going to say. Like some of these questions, I would have a hard time describing.
And I'm telling you, and this is the way it's going. And then she says, so what does it feel like inside the rock? And I'm like, okay, so if I was inside of a rock, what would it feel like? And I was like, and the first word that came into my head was suffocating. I said, suffocating. She goes, suffocating. She goes, explain that to me. I'm like, suffocating, like it's hard to breathe, like you need air and you can't get it. It's suffocating.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, okay. She goes, well, let's go with that. And she goes, okay. And then she says, what else are you feeling? I said, annoyance. And that's what I was feeling, was annoyance, because I was thinking I should be doing better at this than what I was doing. I could tell that she was struggling. I was struggling to get there because I'm thinking, oh, this is not going to work on me. I'm like, this is just not going to work. I'm not. And in my head, I'm like, I can't focus. I can't focus on anything. I'm trying to figure out what this fucking imaginary rock looks like. And now I'm like, and in my head, this is the conversation going on in my head. And she goes, okay. She goes, what does the dirt feel like? And I was like, and she goes, reach out and touch it. And so in my head, I went, okay, what does this dirt feel like? And in that moment, because I am someone who likes to touch things and put my hands on things, I imagined myself reaching out and touching this dirt. And whenever I did that, I was right with her. How she knew that I was a kinetic person, I don't know. But in my mind, in order to reach out and touch that, and she goes, now tell me about this annoyance. I'm like, she goes, what are you annoyed at? And I go, people. I said, I'm annoyed at people. I'm like, things they should be doing, things they are doing, things they shouldn't be doing, the right and the wrong, and what you should and shouldn't do. She goes, let's go into that a little further. She goes, describe that for me. I'm going, it's like you should be helping people, but people don't help people. And now I'm like realizing that I'm like just fucking ranting. And I realize at this point that I'm digging my hand in my fingers into my palm. Now, you guys know whenever I do the Estes method that I'll do one hand like this, like come to me and talk to me, and I'll keep the other hand open. And I don't even realize I'm doing it most of the time. It's just where I'm wanting to hear them. I do this. I realize at this point that I'm digging my fingers into my palm.
You'll do that a lot.
I'll tap.
Yep, you'll tap.
Well, apparently I was tapping as well. But I just started like rubbing and I didn't realize I was doing this till I went back and watched it later. But apparently at that point, I began to dig my fingers into my palm, not even realizing it. And I hear her say, oh, wait, she goes, keep talking. I'm going to get Kleenexes in case there are tears. I'm thinking, tears? I'm like, I ain't gonna fucking cry, baby. You ain't gonna get no damn tear. And I kind of said, I'm like, I'm not really the type that cries. I got my eyes closed. I'm still trying to play along. I'm like, I'm not the type that cries. And she goes, things change. So she says, okay. She goes, I want you to repeat after me. I don't need their help to move this rock. I don't need their help to move this rock. So I say it. She makes me say it like 10 times. And then she says, now I want you to say, I don't need your help to move this rock. So I'm like, I don't need your help. And then in the video, I begin to tap my hand. That's where I started to tap my hand. And I didn't realize I was doing it. And I'm like, okay. And she goes, that's something that's very personal to you. She goes, I can see that. She goes, now let's go into that. She said, and I want you to tell me what you see. And I'm like, in a hole. And she goes, in a hole? I'm like, yeah, I'm in a hole. She goes, with the dirt? I go, yeah, this valuable dirt. Yes, I'm in a hole with this valuable dirt. And at this point, I'm like, I'm listening, I'm thinking. And I'm like going, okay. And I was like, there's a kid in here. And where that came from, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But suddenly I could see a kid with dark brown hair and a little white shirt on and no shoes. And for some reason, you know me in details, I got hung up on the fact the child had no shoes on.
Did the kid appear to you like in a flash, or did it take enough? Did it take time to come together like Blake's did, where his image came when he was
materialized? Because
okay.
because she said, stop and look around. She goes, look around in this hole. She goes, look around and you tell me what you see. And I could look to the left and I could look to the right, but for some reason I couldn't look behind me. And so as I scanned back and forth, I'm scanning in my mind back and forth. And as I looked over, I thought I saw something, and I'm like, well, maybe that was over here. And in your head, you're trying to see every detail, because I get hung up on details. And as I glanced back over, just there, he kind of forms, and I'm looking at him, and I was like, there's a kid in here. And so I told her he's got brown hair and a white shirt, and he doesn't have on any shoes. And I go, and it's really bothering me he doesn't have on any shoes. And she goes, maybe he doesn't have shoes. And I go, I don't know, and she said, why doesn't he have shoes? I go, I don't know, but it's bothering me. He doesn't have any shoes. She goes, why is it bothering you? He doesn't have shoes. I said, because if he had shoes, he might be able to get out. And she goes, is he stuck? And I was like, yeah. It's like, yeah. And she goes, well, what do you feel right now? I said, confused. I said, I'm confused. I said, I don't know why this kid's down here. I don't know why I'm seeing this kid. Now I'm kind of panicking. And I'm like, I don't know why he's down here. And I don't know why he doesn't have on any shoes. And he can't get out. He's stuck. I said, and somebody should have been watching him, and somebody should have known where he was. And she goes, you're right. Somebody probably should have known where he was. And then I do this, and I do this slight head turn, and she goes, what just happened? And I go, I heard something. And she goes, what did you hear? And I said, it's this heavy thud. And I said, it's heavy. I said, but there were two of them. I said, and that doesn't make sense. Why would you drop something that heavy twice? And I said, it doesn't make any sense. She goes, it doesn't have to make sense. And she's literally like, it doesn't have to make sense. Throw the logic out the window. What happened is you heard something twice, two heavy thuds. She goes, what did you hear? And she was a little bit forceful. She goes, what did you hear? I said, dynamite. And she goes, and I was like, where the hell did that come from? And she goes, okay, so somebody dropped two heavy boxes of dynamite. And I was like, yeah, that's what it is. And again, now I'm flipping my own ass out, because I'm like, where the hell did the word dynamite come from? And why would you drop two heavy boxes? I don't know what a heavy box of dynamite being dropped sounds like. I have no freaking clue. But that's what I heard. And I was like, oh my God. And she goes, could you be in a mine? And I said, I don't know. I said, I don't know where we are. I said, I don't know where we are. And she goes, this is where I'm going to get upset. She goes, can he get out? And I said, no. I said, but the little shit's got moxie. He's trying. I said, and he's smart. And she said, does he get out? And I took this deep breath, and I said, I don't think so. And she goes, okay. And that's where I started crying. And all I went in my head was, fuck, she did it to me, And I even whispered it. I go, I don't think so. And right there in that moment, I've got my hands like right here in front of me, and I'm just pressing on the inside of my hand, and I'm tapping and I'm pressing. And I just go, I don't think so. And she goes, well, she said, I want you to reach out to him. She said, I want you to give him a hug. She goes, I want you to tell him what's going to happen, and tell him that it's not fair, but tell him this is what's going to happen. So, just tell him, let him know. And I'm thinking in my head, there's no way. I can't tell a kid he's going to die. I'm thinking, there's no way I can do this. And as I turned, my head turned, and all of a sudden, I saw the eyes do that. These big brown eyes of this child look at me. And he saw me. He fucking saw me. I don't know how, but he saw me. He knew that I was there. And I cannot explain that. And that so unnerved me. I knew he could see me. I knew it. And she goes, okay. And I even said, he can see me. And she goes, okay. She goes, let's let him go. She said, and I'm going to end the session here. And her voice was very quiet. And I opened my eyes and I went, you made me cry. And she goes, yeah, I have a tendency to do that to people. I said, you know what? I said there was no way. And I'm going to tell you right now that I was not expecting that. I said, and I'm going to tell you that you win. And I wasn't like tearing up. I was full on boohoo. I had mascara running down my face. I looked like I'd been rode hard and put up wet, child. And and I asked her, and I said, I can't believe you did that to me. I said, I don't know what the hell just happened to me. And she goes, I'll tell you. She goes, I almost ended the session because I didn't think I was going to be able to get you there. She said, I couldn't figure out how to get you into that state. She goes, you are a challenge. She goes, you are exceptionally difficult to get there. She said, and to be honest, all of that happened within the span of about 5 to 7 minutes. I was in there for 40. So for over 30 minutes, she struggled to get me in that state. So
were you, or were you looking through the eyes of someone else? Did you feel like it was you in the situation?
She asked me that question. She said, do you think that the child was you? And I said, I'm going to tell you the truth. I said, I don't know. I said, I truly don't know. I said, for whatever reason, I more feel like I got to peek in on something else that was happening. I said, and the reason why I say that is because what popped into my mind as this little kid, and I say little kid, 8 years old, that would be my guess, 6 to 8 years old, is moving these rocks. And I was like, the little shit's got moxie. He's trying. I don't use the word moxie. And I definitely wouldn't call some little 8-year-old, unless they're being a terrorist, a little shit, you know? But I was like, and it doesn't almost sound like my voice. I go, little shit's got moxie. He's trying. Almost as if it's like a proud moment. Little shit's got moxie. He's trying, you know? And it just bothered me. He had on no shoes. And I don't know why that has hung, and that still hung up in my head. Because if he had shoes, he might be able to use his foot and put his foot underneath it and move those rocks with him and move some bigger rocks, because he could get on, could sit down and push them with his feet or something, and it wouldn't hurt his feet. But he didn't have shoes, you know.
Interesting. So what I do find interesting about both of y'all sessions is that both of y'all she used your pain to channel you into a situation, into a glimpse or a
moment
in time. And they were both traumatic moments at the same time.
Because she had said, prior to mine, she had told me before she started bringing up the pain, that a lot of the times past lives, that is how they let themselves be known in the present life is the pain.
Moment of and it's the moment of departure. The most painful moment is how you remember it.
Okay.
The moment of loss, because that's usually what's the most scarring.
Now, I will say one thing that I did leave out of mind whenever Shelly was talking about being a kinetic person, tactile senses. Shelly, I told you afterwards, and you had even told me, you were like, well, you got a lot deeper than I did then. I can still remember how his shirt felt. Sorry, I can still remember how his shirt felt on my arms, how his, not sure if they were pants, whatever he's wearing, down on his legs, how that felt. I remember the smells in the area. I felt the breeze, the colors, I remember all of this. So I had a very
different
tactile, I guess, experience.
Well, I'll tell you what I truly found interesting was at the beginning, whenever I was pretty sure it wasn't working. And I said that the rock was jagged. Think about it. If you're blowing out a part of a mine and blowing up those rocks, they're going to be jagged. And she said, what does it feel like? I said, it's suffocating. Yeah. And at that point, I don't think I was in it. I was just I was trying to answer the questions as best I thought I could. And I really believe this little kid ran out of air. I really believe he probably suffocated. And I kept saying the dirt's valuable. If they were in a mine, the dirt would be valuable. There were things that whenever I know that I wasn't there yet, because I'm running in my head going, God almighty, okay, well, I don't know. What does a freaking, what does a boulder feel like? It's not round. I know it's not round, but it was just interesting in watching it back, because things I said at the beginning, when I knew damn good and well that I was I wasn't wherever she wanted me to be, but that somehow or another they actually did connect to what actually happened. I got to tell you, that threw me. And I'll tell you, I walked out of there. But before whenever she told me, she goes, I didn't think I was going to get you there. She said, we'd already worked for almost 20 minutes and I hadn't gotten you there. And she said, I thought that you were really somebody I was going to say, you're going to have to come back and we're going to have to try again. She goes, and then all of a sudden she goes, it worked. And I said, as I'm going, well, you know what? You're going to have a much easier time. He's held a lot easier than I am. He'll be a good subject for you. And I'm walking out, child, I got shit on my face. And
she did. She walked out with
looking
a
at me
tissue
like
full of
this.
mascara. I was like,
I did like this with my tissue. And I go, here's where all my mascara is. And after he went in, I sat in the car and cried for another 20 minutes.
Wow.
And you know me, I'm not some damn titty baby. I'm not going to just boo-hoo. That's not me. But very interesting connection. Y'all know with me that I can't handle hearing anything about anything bad happening to a kid. I can't handle it. Yeah. In fact, sometimes I ask y'all to leave details out when it involves kids because that's just not something I can listen to.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that's kind of the connection.
I know Ryan's got a couple of burning questions.
Yeah, go ahead, Ryan. Ask away.
Well, I mean, like I said, I find it very interesting that pain was the gateway or the key to get you guys to where you needed to go.
Strangely enough, she asked me, she said, how's your neck? And I went, and my whole neck popped and I went, whoa.
I have not, and I will say that my back has not hurt from the moment the session ended. It still has not hurt.
Huh.
And I will tell you this side of my neck has not hurt either.
So
but now this side has. This side right here, right below my ear has hurt.
Do you think?
The other side, no.
Do you think if there were a different catalyst, you would have experienced something more pleasant?
I couldn't tell you.
I honest to God's truth, I don't think I could tell you either. I don't know because I don't think you can't. Well, hell, we say it all the time. You can't label the unknown. You can't know the unknown. So I think using a different catalyst or a different entryway into this, or even the usual, well, maybe not normal, but the usual, hypnotherapy or hypnosis way, I can't tell you what we would have experienced.
And I'll tell you this too, that there were moments when so like Blake actually saw someone he cared about that had died. I never saw this child actually die. It was it was almost like something in my head knew that I couldn't witness that I wouldn't be able to freaking walk out of there if I did that. But I knew it was going to happen. And for whatever reason, I don't know if she knew she should do this. But for a reason, she shut it down before I ever got to that part of the story.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you right now, before this, I thought this was 100% absolutely fakeable, absolutely debunkable, and pretty much relatively unlikely to be real. And I'll tell you that I fought it. I fought it the whole time to the point where she was ready to just say, okay, we'll have to try again another time with you. But I can't explain what happened. I can't explain how I get A, B, and C at the beginning, and it ties to, X, Y, and Z.
I was going to say, I think too, because Blake was more open to the idea. And I think maybe that's why Blake had more of a tactile experience.
A deeper experience,
yeah,
perhaps?
where he remembered, like I said, he felt the breeze. He could feel the air temperature. He could remember smells and things like that. So maybe that's why he had more of a more intense and in-depth experience than you did.
Oh, mine was very intense.
Well, you know what I mean?
But here's the difference. I could only see brown hair. I don't know I knew it was a little boy. I don't know what his face looks like. I do know he had brown eyes because he cut those eyes at me, and that's all I could see were the eyes. No, he had on a white shirt. Couldn't tell you what his pants looked like, but I do know that he was barefooted. I couldn't tell you how tall he was. I couldn't tell you anything else about him, except I'm just going to go ahead and throw this out there because I threw this out to Blake the other night. When he looked at me, I know he saw me. I know he saw me. No doubt in my mind, he could see me. And he looked confused as to like, who are you? And that gave me a whole new perspective on people that are about to pass. You know, they say that, you know, your family members gather around you to welcome you in and your life flashes before your eyes and this kind of stuff. And I wondered if he thought in that moment that I might have been an angel. Because you hear about people saying that angels come to them, you know, and like when they're on the brink of death and they see something and they attribute it to being an angel. And then maybe they come back and that was their near-death experience. They always say it was, but I know he saw me. And he was probably like, who is this? That just gave me a whole nother freaking perspective on,
Lord, Shelly,
was he seeing something, or did he really see me, or did he think I was someone else, or I don't know.
That can lead you down a that's a Pandora's box that you could open.
I just kicked it over.
You know, and that also that kind of goes into, you know, something we've talked about before. Are we haunting ourselves? You know, where he noticed you, he saw you, and he saw me. Who the hell is that? You know, maybe in that
he didn't look like he was afraid of me, though. It was just kind of like,
I'm saying, but like maybe in that moment, like what he's experiencing seeing a ghost, quote unquote. Maybe who's to say that if people, I don't know, maybe we're haunting ourselves. Maybe, you know, someone's being passed. Like, I don't know.
That's my theory was that if like you said, and Blake, we win because we were guessing that's the path that Ryan would go down.
Yeah.
Could it have been that? And this was one of my theories. If he didn't see me as someone that was welcoming him to go to another plane, could I have been literally a ghost that was in the mind of someone that had already passed? If it was a mind, that was actually seeing another ghost or someone that had just become a ghost, which is why I couldn't see facial features.
Or what if at the moment of death, timelines and planes merge and you are catching glimpses as the streams are crossing the streams? You know what I'm saying? Like, what if that's the case?
Ding, 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 Blake. Blake called it almost exactly what you'd say.
I called that almost exactly. Yeah. Because you open up this Pandora's box now of he sees you.
And he did see me. There's no doubt in my mind.
And he reacts to you because like he looks up and looks right at you.
Yeah, he does. He looks up and he looks right at me.
You said you could see his eyes. Could you tell by his eyes of whether you were familiar to him?
He didn't look to be afraid of me. No, he was not afraid of me. It was just kind of like, huh, who are you? You know? I mean, he didn't say anything.
Right.
He didn't say anything, and he wasn't afraid of me.
But people's eyes give away. I mean, you know.
Yeah, no, he wasn't afraid of me at all. It was more like, hey, how did you get down here? You know, it was kind of like, hey, what are you doing here? You know, but he wasn't afraid of me. But he looked. That's what effing rattled me. That rattled me.
So yeah, you get into this whole, oh my God, of different realms or different planes, as well as even some, maybe even the like space-time continuum type shit, to where it's like, this is the past, but how is Shelly's soul that's in the present is also witnessing this? Are they playing out at the same time, back and forth, over and over? You get into some confusing shit with this stuff.
So, you know, along these same lines, you know how like people will say, well, how come you never see a ghost in normal clothes? You always see a ghost in like Revolutionary War garb or Civil War garb or something like that. You know, what, like, and there's a lot of people, like, so this is getting really fucking out there. There's a lot of people that think, you know, time is a loop and it's experiencing itself all at the same time. So what if to us, we're seeing that, and to them, what they see as a ghost is us from the future? Or does that make sense what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
They might think they're seeing aliens.
Yeah, they don't know what they're seeing.
Some strange futuristic visitors.
Well, then we get into one thing that we've talked about with all of that stuff. I mean, we're talking about Shelly seeing this kid, me experiencing me carrying this person, you know, you get into the theory of also your doppelgangers that we've talked about before. You know, whether it's on separate planes. What if in that moment, what if in that one moment where somebody goes, oh my God, I just saw you and you were that way the hell on the other side of the building. If those two planes for just that one brief moment, the veil lifted between the two. And if it was Shelly's doppelganger that we're seeing, it wasn't Shelly's doppelganger. It was a second Shelly, because a second Shelly exists in an alternate universe on a separate plane. You get into some.
You guys know that doppelgangers. There have been at least 3 people that have seen my doppelganger somewhere whenever I am at that location. And they were like, "Hey, did you just go around the corner?" I popped my head. I go, "No, I'm right here." And they're like, "What the hell? You literally just went around that corner."
It's like you're Shelly from Universe 2, but Shelly from Universe 5 happened to show up and like walk down the hallway. You know what I mean?
Right. So the big question is do they all play in together? You know, is it all these different theories that we have of, you know, this past life belief, the alternate universes, the different planes, the different realms, the you know, space-time continuum, time is a loop. I mean, are we right? Are we right on everything, or, you know, and it all exists all together?
Or completely out in left field and wrong about everything? Are we all right or all wrong about everything?
That's the question. Hold on. I will say this. When I say the experience was so freaking profound that I had, and I can only speak for myself because I'm not putting words in Shelly's mouth. Those are the questions that I walked away with after I experienced this, was thinking of these things, of alternate universes, time is a loop, the space-time continuum, string theory, different realms, different planes. That's how, just, I keep saying the word profound, but there has to be something that's more drastic than that, in my opinion. Profound doesn't seem to sum it up enough.
It was life-changing for me. It put a different perspective on some stuff for me.
Yes.
I think when you do what we do, you have to consider all of those possibilities, because we don't know the answer. That's what we're trying to figure out. That's why we do what we do. We're trying to figure out answers. What comes after this? Where do we come from? Where do we go? You know, how do we relate to other people? It's all questions that we're trying to answer ourselves. And I think that you have to consider so many possibilities. And there's also, you know, science and spiritualism, a lot of the times I think are saying the same things in a lot of different ways, but are using a different language to do so.
Right.
And one kind of backs up the other, and one can, you know, so
one proves and one disproves, right?
One proves, you know. So I don't know. Will we ever know the answer? Probably not.
Gentlemen, Miss Linda did contact me and said that she would really like to do another one with us. And would we be interested?
I'll do it.
Would you? Are you in, Ryan?
I'll do it, yeah.
Okay.
Now,
how about you, Blake?
Yeah, I think I would do it.
Now, she wants to wait a month or so because she doesn't want, she wants for that feeling of whatever it is to kind of leave us.
Okay.
And of course she says, would like to do another with you. Blake is an excellent subject. She goes, you're a challenge and I need that. I'm like, what the hell?
We all knew you were a challenge, Shelly.
I do have a quick question before we move on from this, though.
Okay.
Have y'all, since you've had that done, have you noticed any different feelings since that? Have you had like any more flashes of anything? Have you?
No,
I have any of the same presences that you felt?
Actually, no. I haven't even felt any of the same Now, here's another can of worms. No, I haven't felt any of the same presences that I've felt before since that.
I think it's really weird that you ask about presences because I don't know if y'all saw me look over this way because I felt something back towards this way. But anyways, me personally, I'm not getting any further flashes or anything played out in my brain. That memory just plays over and over. It'll pop in my head and then it'll play over and over for a little bit and then it'll go away.
Okay. In all fairness,
the emotions are still there with it too.
Mm-hmm.
So
in all fairness, I take that back. The flashes. I thought you were talking about continuing the story. In that case, no. But I will tell you, I randomly think of those huge eyes just looking at me.
Mm-hmm.
Just that look that I saw whenever he looked up. That is something I haven't shook yet. I haven't shaken that yet because I'll just be like, working along and I'll just think about it and I'll be like, whew, okay.
Yep.
And then I'll continue on.
Yeah.
This is going to sound hokey. The eyes are kind of haunting me.
No, it doesn't sound hokey at all.
That's what it just, his eyes were just so intense and so trusting and so kind of like, hey, who are you? But not scared, more curious.
Yeah.
But I have no doubt that he could see me. There was no doubt he could see me.
Yeah.
So,
also, I want to correct what I said a minute ago. I said science and spiritualism. I meant science and spirituality. Spiritualism.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you right now, Ryan, I was not smart enough to even catch that.
Okay.
So yeah, that was stay tuned for possibly part 2. I would be willing to go back.
I'll do it.
I'm willing to go back. I'm very apprehensive because when I say that I don't know if I ever want to put myself back into that memory.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of hurt, grief, anger, sadness that I felt in that moment, I've never felt before. Actually, I take that back. I felt it on one other occasion. It was when I experienced an extreme loss in my life as well. And in this life.
Yeah.
But my final thoughts on that whole thing, it solidified a long held belief that I've had within myself that past lives are a thing. They can be a player in your current life. Weird how the pain is gone and hasn't returned. I think if you're given the opportunity and you're open to something like this, you've heard our personal experiences now. You probably not going to have the same experiences we did, but this is one experience that you could have, this profound amount of emotion. Just be prepared. Go into it with an extreme open mind. Be prepared of what you could possibly see. What journey you could possibly take.
Be prepared to feel helpless if you can't change anything.
I'm not going to give you a guarantee it's going to be happy. I'm not going to give you a guarantee it's going to be sad or tragic. It's going to be what it's going to be. But now you've heard our experiences on that.
I will say that when I do it, and if it works, I'm going to have to reconcile how it fits into my belief system. I'll say that.
I think that is the absolute right reason to make sure you do it then.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think my final thoughts on it was that, again, I didn't really believe in it. I mean, I believe in soul growth. I believe you can come back. I just didn't really believe that you could access those memories so vividly. And I cannot say for a fact that it was me that was the kid. I can't say that. I can tell you I felt like I was a witness to what was going on for whatever reason, but I can't tell you in what capacity. I did experience an intense emotion, and I thought that could explain a reason that why I have such reactions when it comes to kids. But I can't explain it. There's nothing about it that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that I went first, because if Blake would have walked out looking in the state he did and I was going second, I wouldn't have gone in.
Yeah.
So, guys, Blake, Tell them what all they need to know about us.
All right, y'all. Whatever social media channel you're watching us on, make sure you go and follow us across the board because we don't use every single social media channel across the board for everything. We use them all differently. So go follow us across the board, please.
And you can also become a Patreon member. If you want to hang out with us and find out what we really talk about, become a Patreon member. It's $5 a month. There are no tiers. $5 gets you everything. And if you want to hear what our phone calls are really like, what we really talk about, come find out who has an FBI file open on them. Become a Patreon member and find out. What else, Ryan?
If you can, please go to wherever we get your podcast, like and subscribe, share it with 2 different people and have them share it with 2 different people if you can. Also, if you watch us on YouTube, hit the subscribe little bell in the corner of the video that you're watching. So that way, whenever we're live on YouTube and whenever we put any new content up. And Blake,
you don't miss a thing.
You don't miss anything. And Blake, if they want to ask a question or send us anything cool, where can they send that to?
That will be the EVP pod at gmail.com, THEEVPPOD at gmail.com. And send us your stories, send us your pictures, anything like that. We don't steal, we don't share evidence without your permission. If it's good enough, we might ask you to come on. I'm just saying. But if you want us to take a look at something, we'll take a look at it. You might not like our answer, but we're going to give it to you.
So y'all like, share, and subscribe.
Say much like sex, we're going to give it to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, goodness.
Anyways, we thank y'all for joining us for another week of Everything Vaguely Paranormal. For myself, my name is Blake Smith, and my friends and partners in the paranormal, Mr. Ryan Roberts and Mrs. Shelley Pruitt. And we will Miss Shelley Pruitt. Sorry, Shelley Pruitt. We will see you next Tuesday. Bye, y'all.
I'm still single.
Bye, guys. Me too.
Bye.